Bing, we're live. Google's taking us live. It is the Kent Beck Scrum on a Tuesday. We have Ben, we have Michael, we have Sam. Ben, you were in first. How are things going with you? And is there anything blocking you?
Well, I'm not sure. I posted a couple different things to two different project Slack channels. So you responded to one of them, which was about the website one situation where I was sort of puzzling over how to devise a test for something which is just a very simple, like one line of code kind of change. But you want to make sure to get the testing in there. I'm trying to get better at that.
Great
so the issue is just one about figuring out how to reconfigure a cucumber test so that it can accept a different kind of data.
Yeah, that was in the website one. So yeah, we can certainly have a look at that at the end of the Yeah, at the end of the session. Anything else on your mind or blocking you that needs to be looked at?
Yeah, I have sort of a general question because of the couple different things I've been working on. It seems like there are a couple different ways to go. One is to just fix the problem and sort of pile on more sort of cruft on top of what's already there, and then another is to I mean, this is kind of a standard, I think, software engineering issue where you just sort of this needs a serious redesign, but it's maybe not the right time to do it. Like you said about that, like the URL attribute, which actually should be just replaced by a relationship to the repositories table. I mean, I looked through the code base and found like 65 different mentions of that attribute in 20 different files, and it was like, well, it seems like that should be replaced. And I'm facing a similar challenge in the Wiki EDU thing with I-18 with internationalization. So anyway, that's
well, we can totally have a bit of a chat about that at the top, as well as hopefully addressing those issues. Good stuff. Very good, important questions. Michael, anything to report? Anything blocking you?
No. So we were just in a pairing session and got a few tickets done on automating the single source of truth for when people sign up for subscriptions, which is aimed at basically letting us automatically update the data for our premium prediction models week by week. That's about it.
Yeah, good. That was a good session. Glad to hear you're not blocked. Yes, so yeah, that was we got a few of those bashed down in our session. Before that, I was having a pairing session with Lianzong, and we were sorting out the branch of the searching for events on local support, where he'd sort of like been collaborating with this person Octopinky and through their C9, and there was like Git commits left on the C9 that weren't in the branch, and just all sorts of complicated, confusing things. But I think we got to the bottom of it, and there's still a bit of work to do. But yeah, that was helpful. Oh, actually, one thing that was disturbing there was that Lianzong said that when he looked at my pairing calendar, it was showing him the times like in UTC, and he thought that they were his local times, and he's in like +8, and that was very confusing for him. But Michael and Ben, you've both used that calendar, and you seem to, when you looked at it, you got the times in your local time zone. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm in -5.
Right, but you were. I mean, you both booked pairing times with me, and were not confused. Zone difference. It like the pairings happened at the times you expected them to be at. Correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, which is good for me to confirm, because what that suggests is that the problem is something to do with Lianzong's browser, or some, I don't know, like the Google couldn't interpret his time zone, or his time zone is set to UTC, or who knows. It's so yeah, that was the. I've also got. I'm having trouble running the Jupyter notebook. I'm trying to get through the rest of the K nearest neighbor. stuff for the deep learning mob, which we're having on Thursday. Sorry about that, Ben. We moved the day.
No, it gave me more time to work on just what you want. So it actually worked out.
Yeah, so I'm going to have another look at that tonight. I wonder if it would be easier if I just had the thing running locally on my own machine, as we were talking about doing for the React mob. Sometimes shared things are more trouble than they are worth.
Actually, I have a question about that briefly. Where do you get those Jupyter notebooks?
So they're actually the CS231N syllabus page has a link to the assignment, and then that has a page that links to the all of that. So
there's a zip file. There's a zip file which has a whole assignment, and inside there's the Jupyter notebooks.
And those are linked from the syllabus page there.
I believe so. And if you have it to hand, Michael, maybe you could find the link for that and pop it to Ben. It would be very handy.
Although no big deal. I mean, if it's that simple, I'll be able to find it. I just
well, and then but sometimes I think it's simple, but you never know with these things. Yeah, so that's other things going on, and then after this meeting, we've got the NHS wiki thing where I need to do the NHS report for the paid project, and I also need to record these videos. There's a link there from Michael.
There's the link directly to the zip file.
To the zip file, yeah, which you can load locally. Yeah, all right, and so yeah, I think that's the update. So maybe we can have a chance there to quickly look at Ben's issue relating to, I noticed in the background Federico just got another 500 error starting a Hangout. That's painfully annoying. I wonder if that's a performance issue. But yeah, so you were looking at this. Yeah, so this is like changing the view for the source repositories so that we can see multiple the database work has all been done. And so you were very sensibly looking at what sort of test would be appropriate, and so was I
right? It's a dead simple change to the actual code.
Yeah, it's a very simple change to the.
I didn't want to. There wasn't much to learn from that, so I was like, well, let's see. Okay, how do you do a test?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I looked it up on Stack Overflow. Like, well, how would you create a thing, a table that actually has multiple? But there was like a couple different, you're doing it wrong sort of responses that were like, okay, well, I guess now I know that, but right.
The interesting thing there is that there are many different ways. So the thing that you come up against is that for the test background, you want to prepare have a project in place that has multiple repos,
right?
And so it's just, gosh, my computer's really slow. So there's a number of different ways that you could go about doing that. If we look into something in the projects section, and we've got so it's sort of in the like here. So this is presumably the file that you were looking at, and you were like, okay, so we've got GitHub URL now. I don't know that anyone's going to say that there's a best practice way of doing this, but for example, you could just have it so that this accepted a comma separated list.
Okay. And then just parse it in the steps.
Yeah, and then you could adjust this. You can see how it's already doing things to I've done some fugly things here to basically.
What's that build? What is build? Where does that come from? Build.
So build is an active record thing. I don't know. Okay. I'm not seeing build here. Oh, you mean here? Yeah. So what?
Source repositories are build.
So what this does is basically, if we've got the project, then what we're saying is here, I want to build a source repository that is related to this project. So rather than doing source repository create and then setting the project ID to it, I can do this is active record. I can say project. I can reach through to the has many relationship and say build this thing. And otherwise I do this build here.
And that would be empty then if you in the else clause, right? It would actually not make anything, or
and it actually needs to do that because so that when the form starts up, there's a single repo form element in the first instance.
Ah, okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
it doesn't throw an error because it's not there at all.
Well, yeah. So the test doesn't like try and type in that, into that text field, and the text field's not there.
Uh-huh.
But so it's still. I mean, you can see this is kind of a bit of a hack based upon, the fact that previously it was just GitHub URL and we could set that directly.
Yeah.
But
I saw some other similar hacks in the code base relating to that.
Yeah. So
transition that's still happening.
Yeah. So I mean, there's like the thing that might push us away from doing that comma separated list here is it's going to make these lines extremely long. Perhaps a better approach might be to adjust the given the following projects exist so that it doesn't require the GitHub, or you could just like
eliminate that column.
Yeah, or even just sort of leave it as it is, and you could create, like now the source repositories live in their own table. We could have here and the following. Oops. Have like and the following source repositories exist.
I was a little bit worried about that being sort of less readable to someone who doesn't know the code base, though, which is kind of Cucumber-ish.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a pattern there, which is that, I mean, I don't know that about more or less readable. I mean, maybe this is just like it would be like here, URL.
Project title.
Yeah,
project title,
and then it would be like, project. And like so, like at least if we had something like this, it would be indicating to the user that to the developer reading it that there are entities called projects and that there are entities called source repositories. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this is in a sort of a dangerous halfway house where it's sort of suggesting that GitHub URL is simply a field on projects, right? Whereas if we, I mean, and in principle, to just get it working, there's no need to adjust I mean, the difficulty we have is that this background step is potentially used in a lot of places and maybe expects this, and various parts of the tests are relying upon that, and so on and so forth. Writing something like this that would allow just source repositories exist to be added and have the relations it would need to do the lookup like so.
Really? So you'd have to somehow relate them, though.
Yeah, but
which is sort of less human readable in a way, because now you're like, now you have to now the person reading this somehow has to understand that the notion of
the relationships between them,
foreign keys and things that non-technical shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, although I would say that like if you're kind of coming into a Rails code base and you don't understand about foreign key relationships, you kind of I mean well,
I thought the point of Cucumber was the part that was going to be seen by people that won't see any of the other
right. But I mean,
because they're not developers.
Well, that's what people talk about. Although to be honest, I don't think any non-developers ever read this stuff. Like, to be realistic with you, I think potentially these things, right? The user stories are things that get exposed to non-technical users. A lot of people say like, oh yeah, the advantage of Cucumber is that like non-technical users can read them. I think the reality is that non-technical users don't read them. I think the real advantage for them though actually is that the technical users and the programmers can actually agree on an English language description of what's going on. Is I think there are some situations like, if you've got like a pseudo-technical domain, like a legal domain, and you've got to be able to say like, well, like these are the things that very specifically happen. These are the constraints, like as all there's like medical or what have you. You as the developer can write how the system works in a language form closer to the one that the domain users, the expert users, are actually talking in. But I think we're a long way away from a situation where the non-technical or the pseudo-technical user is going to be reviewing these things for accuracy or relevance. They're certainly potentially interested in the feature level. Go on, Michael. Would you Agree?
Yeah, I think so, but I think that idea has been floating around for a long time, that the non-technical users would read code. Like, doesn't it go all the way back to COBOL?
Yeah, I
Where
mean,
where the executives are going to write business code or whatever.
right. COBOL. Yeah, I thought it said code wall, but yeah, COBOL.
COBOL.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way back in the 50s.
Yeah. I think that's but I absolutely, I think it does float around, and I think a lot of people poo-poo it, and I think it's a shame because they then poo-poo Cucumber and so on. I think the big advantage is it's a kind of a shared understanding between us as developers about what the system's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think it's about the high level
right
description of the system behavior and the
yeah
intent.
it's like being clear about the intentionality, but in that context, I mean even if there was a non-technical user coming in here, I would have thought that in this context where this is just a background step saying, we're saying there's some projects that exist, okay, and we're saying that there's some source repositories that exist, okay, that other things exist, and then it's saying like, I should see, all if we have a scenario which is like, I should see all of the source repositories associated with my project. I think that's like, that's about as good as we're going to get.
Sure, but there's one step. The final step of this is the one that's kind of, in a way, the most confusing to me, because now we have to relate one of these records, in the project, the project table to the source repositories.
Yeah, and that's
now we have to do database stuff.
Yeah, but so we
the ID of this is, you know what I mean?
Well, we do, but we don't do that in the Cucumber step explicitly. Like, what we do is then we would, for example, create this here in the source repositories thing. So in the same way that we're doing, here under the hood, like stuff to make the projects exist and exist in the right form. What we're doing is that, so here we're going to get these hashes coming in here, and so we've got that hash which is about the project. So here we're going to want to do like source repository, I don't know if that's what we call it, and then like create, and then we stick the hash in. And what we probably have to do here is we probably have to do like project find, and then it's going to be like by title or what have you, find by title. But that process of like hooking up the wiring underneath there is done in this step definition.
So but in that step definition, now we have to sort of arbitrarily choose one of the projects from the table.
No.
Okay.
No. Look what I'm doing here. So what we've done in this table here is we've said that there are these source repositories that exist, but we're saying which project's
project title is Hello World. Okay.
There.
I got you.
Like so.
Which is not what's actually in the database, because the database would have the ID as a foreign key.
Right, indeed.
Gotcha.
But we can look it up.
But we can then look up the key there and make the relationship. So here we would need to do this, and we need to get the specific kind of project there, having looked it up via the project title, and then the other things we would need to do is probably like we'd have to delete the project title from the from the hash, so that it doesn't kind of screw up the creation of the source repository. And then having created the source, then we could do here, and we do like project ID, and then do project.id like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So that I had three different things I was thinking about doing. That was one of them, like actually making a table.
Yeah.
With the repositories in the same Cucumber file, but I was sort of stopped because of my dogmatic conception of that it was supposed to be readable by non-tech people.
Right.
Thing to have learned. That's good.
Yeah. And I think in this case, when we're talking about having these, I mean, we could write a step that just says, and the source repository, and there's a source repository of the project is whatever, and we can do like individual steps.
Yeah.
But I think often when we've got like a series of relationships that you just want to do over and over, then a table is probably a better way to do it.
Because you can write various tests. Yeah.
Well, or it's in a clearer format. Like
the table.
The table is then less verbose. Like if you have, anytime the steps get really repetitive over and over again, you're not able to really read what's happening. You know,
like you could have a step that says, "And the project entitled Hello World has a source repository with URL ht, whatever."
Yeah.
Right.
But then it would just be like it would be like boilerplate, line after line after line.
Right. So you'd have 10 lines saying the same thing over and over again, and that's effectively what these tables are. Is that they're kind of using like a scenario thing where you're saying, there's this one thing that we want to do, and here are the key things that go through it. But so the other thing to consider, though, switching gears, so to speak, is that the danger with all of these these supposed acceptance tests, he said doing air quotes, you can't see because I've got the video on, but the is that this background is kind of like manipulating the database into a certain state, and the danger is that we put the database into a state that it wouldn't if we were creating the things through the web interface itself, right? So we've got like this edit project feature where it actually creates projects, and it itself is like it's that's the edit project. There's create projects and so on. It's just something that we've got to, I don't know, watch out for. I just want to say, kind of, here be dragons. That there's a lot of different factors to be thinking about there, about trying to make sure we don't dig ourselves into a hole where the tests are testing for some esoteric setup of the database that doesn't actually correspond to what the users encounter. And you could say, well, that rather than having these background steps, let's, for a true acceptance test, we need to create the project with its multiple source repository relations through the web interface, which we can clearly do because we've got, these things here that create projects on the fly. The danger is that then just in order to do your test of what things look like in the kind of the view, you're doing this very expensive in terms of the time it takes to run process of creating all of the stuff in the background, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because all of the Cucumber the acceptance tests, when I ran them yesterday, it took 27 minutes or thereabouts.
Yeah, and so it's very slow. So I mean, and
is that normal? That's
certainly not uncommon for this project.
Okay.
And so as I was linking to you in the website one, I put like a threaded reply that maybe you didn't see.
Perhaps not.
But there is two outstanding issues that we have that desperately, I think, affect the whole project, which is one, that the Cucumber test is slow, and two, that we are plagued by intermittent JavaScript failures. And
it's related to those articles that you sent me before about testing with JavaScript. And
yeah, so there's the article about Capybara. So the intermittent failures, as far as we can best ascertain, are kind of related to the they only occur in the JavaScript enabled tests, and we presume that they are related somehow to some kind of race condition that we get and that we don't understand. And what we have various things in place, like, so basically if you encounter individual Cucumber failures locally, just rerun those individual tests. And if the tests go away, if the tests then go green, like, don't run the entire test suite again. Just run those in. Like you had like 3 failures, yeah. So
that's right.
You know how to run an individual test instead of the whole suite, right? Yeah. So yeah, they will probably all, if you run them individually, they'll probably all pass.
So
now on the CI, go on.
No, I was just clarifying, but I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah. So on the CI, we have it so that it runs all of them, and then it reruns any of the failed ones in order to try and get around that. So we've got this big hack on the CI to try and cope with intermittently failing things. We've got some of them are automatically excluded from the CI. I mean that they fail even more frequently on the CI than they do on the individual developer machines. So it's a big drag, kind of time waste on the project. That's very frustrating. That I don't know. My best hope is that certain of them can be removed. Well, like some of them, like there's this Mercury text editor that always seems to cause it's heavily JavaScript dependent and often seems to cause problems. Hopefully we can remove that. That's also blocking the upgrade to Rails 5. So hopefully we can remove that, and that will remove some of them. Although it's certainly not the only culprits. Then we also have this problem that the Cucumber tests are slow. We have done an analysis and identified, and I put the ticket in my threaded response to you, 4 particularly slow Cucumber tests that are like edit past event feature, list repeating events, hookups pending, edit hangout URL, that according to Semaphore, each take longer than 40 seconds on average. And I did ask someone to look at this previously, and their conclusion was, well, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, no, it is a big deal, like, because it's like it slows down our debug cycle enormously. I think we did have somebody else review it and say he couldn't immediately see a way to reduce the time. I mean, we may need to.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that. That might be. Yeah. That might have been on the ticket itself.
Yeah, I think it's on the ticket itself. So I mean, but maybe another pair of eyes looking at them. And anyway, so they're perfectly normal things. I think there's nothing special about your computer or your setup. It's part of the kind of like ongoing just stuff we have to deal with in this legacy project.
So the Mercury editor, is that going to be replaced, or just that feature is going to be?
I want to replace the Mercury editor. Yes, I think that's the way. That's what we need to do. We even started on that. We started replacing it with this thing called the Medium editor that's based on the Medium blog, which is a lovely different editor. But the person who was working on that just sort of dropped off the radar, and I'm trying to find time to pick that up and move that forward. But it's
yeah. So I wanted to say that our code base is actually really tiny.
Okay, you mean for website 1?
Yeah, like I mean our website 1 and local support are actually quite tiny code bases versus what's out in the rest of the world. So we're some startup with 100 people that have been hacking for 3 years.
But of course, Michael, size isn't everything. I think that's important to say at this point.
I've heard that. But I mean, so do you think that the tests take a disproportionately long amount of time for the size of the code base? Because or is it just when you have a project of the type that you were just describing, it's like, it takes all day to run the test, or do they just have a?
Well, I think that varies from group to group. I think there are. I mean, Michael's right in that our code bases are not large by some standards, although often code bases that have got a lot larger than ours end up, basically they stop testing because the tests do take like 3 days to run, and it becomes then just the debug loop is such that it's impossible to maintain them and so on. So I think it's go on, Michael.
Well, then what happens is users test for them.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, depending upon the market, depending upon the market economics, they either kind of get away with that and they have 10% of their users experiencing bad things, but the other 90% is experiencing enough positivity and generating enough revenue that it all sort of carries on. I mean, I think the really clever or advanced developers manage to keep a careful hold of what they're testing and getting rid of old tests that are not really providing value and keeping the test things down. I mean, a lot of people just don't use Cucumber at all, and they only do unit tests, because it's fast and so
there
on.
is that. I think we're using it. There is that one thing in Rails that will like run multiple tests at a time. Isn't there Zeus or something?
There's Guard, and I mean, there's various bits and pieces. Yeah.
Something that'll run as many tests as you have cores or something.
Right.
I see.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which speeds up the test.
Are there organizations that sort of offload their testing to a cluster?
Well, and there's a lot of organizations, I think, that offload their testing to human. They're like it's human Q&A, and so it's, I think, cheaper for many to do that. I mean, also, yes, people will pay. I mean, we have a problem as well that the CI backs up. Like we're on the free tier of all the CI, and so that slows down our release process because, you know, if we have a lot of pull requests in or whatever, then there's also a wait for this. But yeah, I think big groups will pay for premium CI things, and then they'll be basically the tests will be running in the cloud, you know, on, you know, cores and so on. Yeah. Anyway, well, I better go and make a cup of tea and get on with the NHS wiki meeting, or just like force myself to work on that. But yeah, anything else blocking you making progress there at all, Ben?
Not me. No, I think that's everything from me.
Good stuff. Yeah. Well, no, would be great to get some pull requests for you, and I think there are lots of interesting things about how to, you know, move the project forward so that it's you know, helps us you know, continue to go from strength to strength, as opposed to you know, get caught further and further in a code complex mess. But it's all it's all good fun. Good to see you, Michael. I'll catch up with you guys. So website one meeting tomorrow. Then we're moving it from the Friday to the Wednesday to try and make it accessible to a few more people. So maybe see you there.
Okay.
All right. Bye for now.
And Sam's going to